back to the Homestead. My name is Heather, and this is my second contribution into the Fall into Sourdough collaboration put on by my friend Anna over at the Fermented Homestead. By now, I hope you all have learned a bunch about sourdough, and I hope you are very well inspired, and I hope that your sourdough starters are good and bubbly, just like mine. So once you have a nice, bubbly, active starter, you grow to love it and you really don't want anything bad to happen to it. Unfortunately, sometimes bad things do happen to our sourdough starters, and thankfully, there's a great way to actually preserve your exact sourdough starter so you don't have to start from scratch in the very beginning. The way the sourdough starter works is originally, when you start it up, a lot of people will just gather the active yeasts in the air in order to culture their starter. And different cultures in different houses, in different regions, in different seasons genuinely taste different. So if you have this lovely starter that you absolutely never want to lose, you might consider dehydrating and keeping that starter so you can have that exact culture again and again to be able to share with friends or to replace your starter should something go wrong. Around here, it actually gets pretty hot in summer and I have to take a break from making my sourdough bread just because everything proofs way too quickly. So during that season, I'll actually put my starter to rest. I'll show you how. And then when it gets cool again, I can revive it and it's just as lovely. So we're going to be dehydrating our sourdough starter today. I do have a book that explains how it's done, and how they do it is they'll stick it in a rimmed tray and put it in their oven while it's off for 2 to 3 days. I don't have 2 to 3 days to sacrifice using my oven. So I actually have a really nice Excalibur food dehydrator, and you don't have to have a fancy food dehydrator to do this, but you're gonna want one that has a decently low setting. Our sourdough starter is alive with several lovely yeasts, and the last thing we want to do is kill it. What we want to do is dehydrate it down and essentially make it dormant. So it's important when we go to dehydrate our starter that we start with a bubbly, active starter. The reason we want to do that is it's going to take some time to dehydrate down. And during that time, the yeasts are going to continue to feed, and eventually they will run out of food. But by the time they run out of food and go dormant, they're pretty well dehydrated and ready to be fed again when we're ready to start up our sourdough again. If we attempted to dehydrate a starter that wasn't active, maybe it was hungry and it was time to be fed, a lot of those yeasts and things will probably die off by the time that this is dehydrated down fully, and there's not going to be as much to revive when it comes time. So keep it nice and bubbly like so, and then this is perfectly ready to dehydrate. So this is actually all surplus, so I'm going to be dehydrating all of this if I can fit it in my trays here. Look at all that big bubble. Isn't that amazing? I'm gonna just pour a thin layer of the bubbly active starter down on the bottom. See, this is what we have here. It's about 1/4 to 1/3 of an inch. Again, this is the bubbly starter. It will absolutely shrink down and lose some bubbles in the process, and this is gonna work great. I'm actually going to do an experiment for this video too. I'm going to try to dehydrate some starter down on one of these silicone mats. We'll see how it works without having a lipped tray. So here's one of our starters. Set it right in there. Whoop, the other one. This is the one on the silicone mat. It's gonna go right on top. So my food dehydrator does have a setting that says it's for herbs and living food. This is a really important thing to consider since our sourdough starter is living. We want to keep it alive. We just want to kind of force it into dormancy. So it looks like we're going to have it at about 105 degrees Fahrenheit. Now it is crusty on the top and it's going to be wet on the bottom. So what I'm going to want to do is actually provide airflow underneath by flipping this over as best as I can.
I lose my breath
has a little bubble in it. But same thing, it's dry on the top but not underneath. So I need to like stir it up a little bit and make sure that we can get the underside also dry. Doesn't look pretty, but I promise this is what it needs. It will work. Pop everything back in and give it another few hours. It's basically a sourdough potato chip. You want it to be very dry, very crunchy. Very good sign right there, see? That's what we want. So just like I suspected, the one in the bowl needs another stir just to get everything that's underneath the hard, crispy top to be exposed to the air so that it can dry out. I genuinely thought that this Silpat was going to be a faster method, and it looks like it is. So what I might actually do is move this to a bowl, get it crushed up, we'll go over that process, and transfer this onto the Silpat or this silicone mat.
My life was great till you added colors. Like the moon needs the sun, we don't care about the others.
I imagine you could do the exact same thing with parchment paper if you had that. I like to use these silicone mats when I can, just because they're reusable. So our sourdough took a couple hours longer to dehydrate because of the tray versus the Silpat. So if you have a Silpat or some parchment paper, that is absolutely what I would suggest for time's sake. But everything is dehydrated and stored in this bag. I will place it in a freezer safe bag in the freezer for longevity, and I like to portion them in little 10-gram packets. So we've gone from this to this, and these are the little 10-gram packets that I was talking about. The reason I like to portion them out like this is because the recipe that I have for reconstituting the starter calls for a 10-gram packet. I'll place in the description box below the recipe for reconstituting the starter. Having the dehydrated starter stowed away is really a great fail-safe for you should anything happen to your starter, or if you want to give some of your starter away. It gives you a jump start into reconstituting or restarting a sourdough starter that doesn't take as much time to culture and become active as it would if you were starting basically from scratch trying to culture the wild yeasts out of the air. So if you haven't had a chance to check out the Fall into Sourdough playlist, you're going to want to do that, and you're going to want to comment on all of the videos in that playlist, because my friend Anna at the end of September is going to be giving away a free sourdough starter kit to one of those lucky commenters. And if you happen to be gluten-free, fear not, you can absolutely do a gluten-free sourdough. My sister-in-law Jessie just started a YouTube channel. Down here is the video for her sandwich bread. Go ahead and give it a click. It's not sourdough, but a little birdie told me she's going to be adding sourdough recipes very soon.